How's it going, guys? I'm Nicholas Lynn, and welcome to the next episode. I hope everyone's doing well. I want to talk about something that completely changed my life, and I didn't realize how much it was gonna change my life. So in junior year, I had someone tell me, and this was the advice that they gave me, and I never really let it sink in until now when it's been put into more perspective. And that advice was always let go of your ego. That's what they told me, and I never really understood what that meant, right? I always connected ego to confidence or cockiness, and so whenever I thought they told me to always let go of my ego, I thought that they meant just like chill your cockiness down, which was really weird to me. I thought whenever they said let go of your ego, I thought they were meaning just to tone down my cockiness, which was really weird because I never really thought that I was cocky, because I just never really thought that about myself. And so whenever they told me that, I was kind of taken back, and it took me a while to realize what that truly meant. Now, I want to give you an example of this day, a couple years later, 3-4 years later, about what I realized about that advice. So as I've been reading more and more books, and as I've been diving into just educating myself and trying to learn as much as I can, I've realized that the more I learn, the less I know. And I know that sounds super weird and contradicting of one another, but I used to think that I was kind of smart. I kind of knew a decent bit about a few things, And now that I'm becoming more educated and really trying to learn from people and studying other people, I realize how I feel like I'm so far behind the game. Like, I really have realized how I don't know anything, and that I am so uneducated, and I have so much growing to do, and I have so much learning to do. And it's just such a weird feeling, because you think as you start like reading more and learning more and diving into your education, that you would think that you would say, yeah, I know more than I did, or I think I'm smarter than I am now. In my eyes, I feel like I'm just realizing that I know nothing. I know nothing about anything. And it is a weird, humbling experience, but it's also super motivating because it makes me want to learn more, and it makes me want to become an expert in certain things. And I finally tied that to letting go of my ego, right? How can you have an ego in education? Well, I thought that I was pretty smart. I thought I knew a little more than most people my age. And I realized that in the grand scheme of things, that ego of my education was blinding me to the fact that I knew nothing. Like, it was baffling to me. And so that's kind of where that's the first instance whenever that advice really played a role, when I was like, whoa, that's what they meant. It wasn't about my cockiness, it's about this too. But that's not all. It plays a role in every single part of my life. So I've gotten way better now, but I used to have extreme social anxiety. The first speech in college that I gave, I cried in front of the whole class. 19-year-old kid crying in front of the whole class. That was a great scene. If you were there, then you know how ugly that was. But it was really me. It was like a wake-up call, because I had this, all of my social anxiety, it came from this ego that I gave off, that I had, that I thought that people were going to view me weirdly and differently, and that I had to be perfect in everyone's eyes, and that I just had to keep this public image. And that public image was this ego that was holding me back. And once I let go of that ego, and once I realized that I am a no one, and that I really don't matter in the grand scheme of things, and no one really cares about me, I began giving my best presentations and my best speeches, and people connected to what I was saying more than ever. And it was this just weird experience. So I realized it wasn't just a physical ego. It was this ego that I carried. It was a persona and a character. And once I let go of how I thought people cared about me and everything, and I let go of that ego, I was presenting myself better. I was a better character. So it wasn't only playing a role in my education, where I started to realize that I didn't know anything. I realized that I couldn't present information in a positive way. And all of this holding me back was this ego. But once again, I always connected ego to like a physical persona or my cockiness, when it's so much more than that. So now when I think back to that advice that they gave me junior year of high school, 18-year-old Nick, and they said, let go of your ego in everything, I understand they were not just talking about my cockiness, and they weren't just talking about like how I carried myself, how rolled back my shoulders were, how like tall I stood. It was so much more than that, and it's played a role in everything. It plays a role in my employment and my jobs, because you think like I deserve so much money, because you care about yourself. I deserve like $30 an hour because you love yourself, right? And that's what we think, and we think we're valuable. And then you look back and you destroy that ego and you realize that you're nothing and that you really probably don't have anything to offer that someone else can't offer. And it's this humbling experience, and we can use it to motivate ourselves and encourage ourselves and realize that, when we let go of this ego and we look at ourselves from like a magnifying glass from 40 feet in the air, and you see yourself as like a person, but not as yourself. You see yourself as like someone else, and you start evaluating yourself and studying yourself, and there's no ego involved. There's a lot of room for improvement and changes, and you realize that there's so much learning you can do just by releasing your ego. And it's not just how you carry yourself and how far your shoulders are rolled back. It's so much more than that. And you see an ego play out everywhere. We see it in sports, we see it in cockiness, we see it in academics, education, employment, work, finance. We see it everywhere. And once we're able to just destroy that ego, that is the fundamental thing that allows us to begin bettering ourselves. Ever since that advice was given to me, I've been on a journey just to better myself. And if you guys are close to me, you've heard me say this multiple times, that I feel my purpose in life is to become like, just to better myself to the maximum ability that I can, and to help other people and encourage other people to better themselves as well. That's all I want to do. That's all I've ever really wanted to do once I realized that I had a passion for it. And I think that when we let go of our ego and we realize what that really means, that is a fundamental foundation on how we can begin just improving ourselves in every aspect of our lives. When we let go of our ego, I believe that we're going to have better relationships. You're going to speak better. You're going to become smarter. You're going to have more motivation, more encouragement. And everything's just going to change once you let go of that ego. But you have to remember that letting go of your ego is a process, and it doesn't happen overnight. And you have to realize that your ego is playing a role in multiple sectors of your life. It's everywhere. And once you really let that go, everything's going to change for you. And it did for me. And I'm so thankful for the person who gave me that advice and that changed my life. And this is 3-4 years later, and it still just baffles me at how that advice is so relevant. And it's in so many different aspects of my life, especially in this time of how we get all this instant gratification, and we feel that we deserve so much, and that we feel that we've earned it, and that we're entitled to it. When you let go of that ego and you realize, like, man, I don't deserve it. Like, what have I done that someone else hasn't done? Like, what have I really done to like put my footprint on the earth? And why should I be given this? And why do I deserve this? Why do I deserve this over the person next to me? That's when we can begin bettering ourselves. That's the motivation and encouragement that we need to push ourselves to that next level, to become successful and to become who we want to become. And that's what really matters at the end of the day. Did you become the person you wanted to become? Like, and that doesn't mean like, oh, I wanted to be a fighter when I was a kid and now I'm an accountant. Just completely different opposite ends of the spectrum. It means, is your character the person that you wanted your character to become? Do you treat people the way you wanted to treat people? Do you treat yourself the way you wanted to treat people? Like, what are your views in life? Are they what you want to be? That's really what it comes down to when you say letting go of your ego and bettering yourselves. And that's how you have a successful life, is you look at the end game. You hear it all the time when people are on their dying beds. They don't talk about how much they have in their 401k or retirement, or how they had that huge yacht, or they had, the new Yeezys or the new Travis Scotts. None of that shit matters. Like, none of it matters. And once you let go of that ego and you think that all that stuff matters, you realize that there's only really a few things in life that truly matter. And then you get your perspective and your motivation to push you towards those things that matter. All of the things, like every little piece of your life is going to start falling into place. Your finances are going to fall into place. Your education is going to fall into place. Your relationships are going to fall into place. It all changes, and it all stems from just developing ourselves to become a better person. And so I encourage you to just look at yourself from a third point of view, from a magnifying glass from 40 feet above, and look at yourself as if you're another person, and try to improve yourself and let go of your ego and see, what are you doing now that you think you could be doing differently? Or how do you think now that you think you could be thinking differently to improve yourself? And one thing that I want to stress, that I have done this, and I don't want you guys to do this when you're on this journey of self-improvement and bettering yourself. I've always been insanely hard on myself. I've always been my biggest bully. I can tear myself apart like no other. And so I want to make sure that when we're going through this journey that we're encouraging ourselves. You're not just encouraging one another. I'm not just encouraging you. I'm also encouraging myself, and I'm encouraging myself to not beat myself up and to be easy on myself when I mess up or when I'm not the person I want to be. It's important that we realize that this is a journey and it's not a straight line race. It's going to be completely different for everyone. And it's just important that you realize that and you don't beat yourself up. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I've made as I've tried to get at a self-improvement journey. And if I could go back and I work on it today, just be kinder to yourself. And that's really going to lay a solid foundation for you. And you're just going to begin bettering yourself, and your whole life is going to begin to change. And you're going to be so grateful that you let go of that ego and that you let life just play out and that you're appreciative of everything. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. And thank you so much for the advice that I was given junior year of high school to just let go of my ego and everything and allowing that to change my life. Thank you so much. And I hope you guys have an incredible week.